Okay, so you're very welcome to the workshop for this evening, and the title is How to Structure Your Training Week. So you've done a number of weeks of training at this stage, and you've been hearing words like aerobic exercises, strength exercises, balance exercises, and flexibility exercises. So I want to bring us through that and show you how it kind of would fit in a nice way to allow your body to adapt to it in the week, right? But before I do that, I'm aware that there are some people maybe that haven't seen the last few workshops. Just in case you haven't, I'm given literally a 90-second background bit here, because when we talk about health, muscle has a huge impact to play on this. Now, I covered this in detail in one of the earlier workshops on this program, but just a quick reminder, what you're looking at there is a scan of a thigh, right? And the white bit in the middle there is that bone. It's the long bone. If you put your hands down on your thigh, it's that bone that runs from your hip the whole way down to your knee, okay? So that's your femur. And the stuff around it that looks like steak is actually just muscle. So if you put your hands on the top of your thigh and squeeze, all of those muscles are kind of, they're called your quads. And if you put them on the back of your thighs and squeeze, they're your hamstrings. And you have loads of other muscles as well in around there, but they're the big ones. So then the white stuff at the very outside is what we call fat tissue. And it's any of this stuff here, like that you can pull away from muscle. And you'll generally be able to do it easier in certain places, like the backs of your arm or maybe the tummy area. But if it has loads of functions, we need a lot of it, or some of it anyway. And it's important to have some adipose tissue. But anyway, if I was looking at that leg, I'd say that's a nice leg. And I'll tell you why it's a nice leg, because there's loads of muscle, all right? And that muscle is strong. And if the muscle is strong, that means the bone is strong, okay? And these are things that we really want, particularly as we're hitting middle age and all of the years that go past that. Now, I will also say that this is a very well-trained person. So this person they're 40, so same as myself. They're triathletes, so they do swimming and they do cycling and they do running. So I would expect their leg to look like this, right? So we'll say this is me. But my job is very sedentary. So I sit a lot. Okay. So I sit for my 8 hours in my job. I sit when I eat. I go to sleep for X amount of hours a night. I could be sitting or lying maybe 20 out of 24 hours if I don't train. And if I do that over the next few decades and I don't exercise, this is really what happens. So this is the effect. This is aging, basically. But the key here is if I'm inactive and I don't exercise. So the short story is you lose an awful lot of muscle. It shrinks, it wastes away. And on what you notice with that, though, is really how it affects your life. So you lose your balance. Your balance is poor. Your strength is poor. So you'll struggle to get out of chairs. You'll struggle to do the things that you need to do in life, like getting in and out of a car, carrying your shopping, all of the things that you require strength for. And if the muscle is weak, the bone is weak. So it's very likely that bone will have osteoporosis, at least, probably looking at arthritis in joints. And the very short story of all of this is it affects everything. So it affects your hormones. It starts to, if I check the bloods on this person, it's very likely that they'll have high cholesterols, they'll have high blood sugar levels. And if I do questionnaires on this person and I look at their quality of life, you will see it's affected, and you'll be looking at things like physical health issues and often mental health and well-being issues. See, there's an awful lot of stuff going on here, and it's also very much related to things like Alzheimer's and dementia, breast cancer, colon cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and the list goes on, okay? So unfortunately, that is what happens. But if we look at a different situation here, so this is a picture of a 70-year-old triathlete, okay? Now, I'm not trying to turn everyone into triathletes, just have a look. So this person is very, very active. So they're doing their strength work, they're doing their fitness work, they're doing their flexibility work, and they're doing a lot of it, okay? And I want to show you an extreme example of someone who's very active, and even we'd say extreme. If you take Anne, so you'll all know Anne from, a lot of you will know Anne from the training sessions. This is pretty much Anne. So Anne is 64, and her leg would look very like this. And her ability, her functional ability would be, like, she's nearly 30 years older than me, and I'm still struggling to keep up with her on all of our training sessions. So the reality is, what I'm trying to say to you is, people who train and are very active, it's basically anti-aging. So often we say exercise is anti-aging because it is. And while I don't want to turn anyone into triathletes, you might have no interest, and that's absolutely fine. I want to get everyone that I come in contact with as far away from that middle picture as possible, okay? So far away from the medications and the hospital visits and the frailty and the falls and all of the stuff that goes with that. And that's very, very possible with what you're doing with us right now, okay? So you're already on a really brilliant road. So that's my message, okay? It's not that we have to all go bananas. We just need to do something is better than nothing, right? So let me show you what you're actually doing. So the recommendations then that we've been going through over the last few weeks, there's a very specific reason. And I'm just reminding you, I spoke in previous workshops about 4 types of movement, 4 types of exercise. And the first one is aerobic. So this would be things like walking or dancing or cycling, things like that, things that use your whole body for more than a few minutes. And the recommendation is to do 30 minutes, most days of the week. You don't have to do 30 minutes together. You can do 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there and 5 minutes somewhere else. But the reason why this is recommended is because the short story is it improves our fitness. So everything we do from the minute we wake up to the time we go to bed is a lot easier when you're fitter versus when you're not fit. And it also protects against everything I've just mentioned. So generally, the fitter a person is, the healthier they are. And that's completely regardless of their body size. So you could have someone who's in a larger body frame, but if they're fit, they don't get any of the problems that can be associated with higher weight. So it's really, really good for health. It'll also keep your blood pressure really good. It'll keep your cholesterol's great. It'll keep your blood sugars great. And it basically corrects a lot of the problems that we get with aging. So that's why this is recommended most days of the week. The second type that's recommended, and I would put a big, massive star on top of this one, is your strength training. Because most of us, well, you are now because you're training with us, which is fantastic. But most of the people that and I've worked with thousands of people at this stage over the last 20 years, most people aren't doing strength work. And what I mean by that is exactly what you're doing in your classes. So you're doing your squats. So you have those lovely strong legs now after your 12 weeks. You're doing your lunges. You're doing all of the wall press ups. You're doing your core work. All of that is brilliant for strength. And of course, as time goes on, I know Anne and the girls are starting to build in things like water bottles and household items that you can use. It doesn't necessarily mean gym. People think strength work and they think, oh, I must go to the gym, but that's not what it is. You can do an awful lot with your body weight and with things like water bottles. But you can progress on to things like resistance bands and free weights as well if you want. But why do we ask you to do this? Because this is the thing that will stop you losing muscle, okay? Now, the aging process happens to all of us, but I have to have a special mention for women, because once we approach menopause and once we start to go through menopause, we have a 5-year period where we rapidly lose muscle and we rapidly lose bone. And unless you're doing resistance training, it's very likely that you'll end up in some type of trouble with osteoporosis and muscle pain and all sorts of stuff. So it becomes a necessity. So this is what keeps you strong. It gives you, this is what actually stimulates bone to grow. So anyone who has osteopenia or osteoporosis, this is one of the major prevention and cure. And of course, it helps us to not be frail because we're very strong. It'll prevent falls and all sorts of stuff. So once we hit 40, this becomes very important. Once we hit 50, it becomes very, very important. And once we hit 60, it becomes one of the most important things we'll do. And that goes true for life. So, you know, people would say to me, Ashra, I'm too old. You're never too old. We've people in Port with us at the moment training in their 80s, and there's massive gains to be got from this. So I can't stress that enough. Okay, so that's why you have to do it 2 to 3 days per week, and you're doing it with us, of course. So very quickly, the third type is just stretching. It could be just the stretching you do with us at the start and end of class, or it could be fancy things like yoga, Pilates, things like that. This is very, very good for taking away pain and stiffness, which is something that a lot of us have. So if you have pain and stiffness, this is really, really good. Just a few minutes, a couple of days a week. And importantly, it'll keep your joints mobile because we lose mobility as we get older. So it's important to move them through their full range of motion so that they don't get stiff and restricted. And the fourth type that you'll all be very familiar with now is your balance. And of course, you're experts on it now. I don't need to list out 50 exercises for you because you've done a lot of them already. But anything on one leg will train your balance. And if you've watched my previous workshop on balance, it'll give you loads of ideas, as will the other workshops on each of these 3 types. So that's the background. And so for that reason, this brings me into today. Okay, so these 4 types of movement are very, very important for health. They each give you a very specific benefit, and that's why each of them have a recommendation. So, you know, most of them are just a couple of days a week, but the aerobic is almost every day. So if you're to look at that, then you're thinking, well, how do I, you know, work this? How do you manage this in a week? So I want to show you a sample training diary. Okay, so we're just going to take a 7-day training diary, so a week basically, and we'll just pretend this is me. And on Monday, I go for a walk. So it's a 45-minute walk. And if I look back on what that is, that's aerobic exercise. Okay, so it's the aerobic type, right? On Tuesday, we'll say I do my primetime class. And we have specifically structured your primetime classes that you get the 4 types of exercise in your class. Okay, so you're getting aerobic, resistance, which is strength, you're getting flexibility or stretching, and you're getting balance. So that's why we do it in that way. So we'll say on Wednesday, I have a little less time. I want to do something. I go for a 30-minute walk, and that's aerobic again. On Thursday, I do my primetime class. So I'm getting all of those 4 in again. Friday, I have a rest. It's been a long week. I'm tired, but I might decide, if it's me, I might decide, right, I've been at this laptop all week. Everything's stiff. I'm sore, back, shoulders, knees, everything. So I decide I am resting, but I'm actually going to do one of the on-demand stretching videos because I want to get rid of all of that tension and let my body relax and get rid of the pain and stiffness. So while I'm taking a well-deserved rest from training and I'm letting my body recover, I'm going to help it recover by doing a little bit of stretching. And that's a really good thing to do. Okay, 20 minutes, done and dusted. I'm watching something on TV. I get all those benefits. Okay, usually at the weekend, I will do some type of a longer session. So it probably might be my longest walk or run or whatever I'm doing. And of course, that's aerobic again. And then at the weekend, if there's any time on any other day, I try for it to be something completely different and something fun and something I really like to do, especially with my little ones. So I'm looking at a 7-day diary here, but of course it'll look different for everybody depending on your schedule. But I want to show you, right? So basically you're looking at your 2 primetime classes and you're looking at some walking. Okay, so coming back to what we're talking about, if I count this up, right? So the recommendation for aerobic is most days of the week. And if I count all my aerobic sessions on that, I have 5, right? Now I haven't specified what Sunday is. I might go dancing, so it could be 6, right? If I look at the recommendations for my strength training or my resistance training, it says 2 to 3, and I have my 2 done with my primetime classes. Okay, if you want to do more, great, look at one of the on-demand videos. And I would recommend it if you feel that your strength is poor. I would maybe at the weekend do an on-demand video and you'll really benefit from that. But for this person, they have everything ticked. If I look at the recommendations for flexibility, I have them met because I've done some in my primetime class, and I've also decided to do a little bit extra on a Friday. And for balance, my balance is good. I only have to do 5 minutes a couple of days a week, and I have those boxes ticked as well. So with the primetime classes and a little bit of walking, you've actually met all of the recommendations for health that we covered earlier, and you get all those benefits. So does that make sense? Yeah, so it doesn't have to be anything huge. Just what I'd love you to be aware of is what type of training are you doing and where are you in relation to the guidelines. And as I said, if you haven't had a chance to look at the aerobic, strength, flexibility and balance workshops I did, that'll give you, each one of those separately will give you a lot more information on those specific types. Today is only designed as how do you manage it in a week, right? And for the final minute, there are 3 really good training rules that you should consider if you want to be well and feel well and make sure you're not overdoing it. And these rules apply whether you're a complete beginner or whether you're very advanced and very well trained. And so like my own background would be ultra endurance. So it could be, you could literally be doing a 15-hour session. And the reason I'm telling you that is because it doesn't matter whether I'm a beginner, like after I had my baby and I had to start all over again, or whether I'm really, really highly trained, these rules are the very same. So they're for all of us, right? And the first one is always start easy and progress slowly. Okay, so we would have said to you when you started with us, take it really easy, stick at the level that's suitable for you, easy, and then you can build on it over the weeks. And I hope that's what everyone is doing, right? So that will keep you good. It'll keep your body from getting injuries and things like that. And the second one is really important now that you guys are doing a lot of training. Okay, so you're in week 7 or 8, I think it's 7. And the way I keep myself well with training is this rule, okay? So it's 3 weeks on and 1 week off. And what do I mean by that? So I get a calendar, a 4-week calendar, and for 3 weeks, take the training diary I just showed you, the example of a week, right? So I'll do that maybe for 3 weeks in a row. And I'll work the best I can and I'll give good effort. And then in the 4th week, I let myself recover. Okay, so it doesn't mean that I take it off completely and I sit down and I don't do anything, because of course that will have a health implication. It means that I be very nice to myself. And it means if I'm tired on a day, say I was to do a 60-minute walk and I decide I'm just too tired, I'm just going to do a stretching session instead. Great, good, really good for you in your recovery week, okay? Or if you decide, like if someone was doing a hill walk on a Sunday, I would bring that down to a very gentle, easy walk on a flat road. So either you'll make your session shorter or you'll leave out a few, or you'll replace them with something nice and easy like stretching. Okay, so do what you want to do for the first 3 weeks. And then on the 4th week, be very nice to yourself, right? I know that sounds strange when we're talking about exercise. It's the best thing you can do to keep your body well. It's the best thing you can do to keep your mind well. And I know I'm talking about training, but I do a lot of work with mental health and with well-being. This would apply in every aspect. So, you know, on that 4th week, you know, have that coffee with your friends that you haven't seen in ages. Get rid of this stressful stuff if you can out of your diary. What I mean is make sure that there's time in your month that you're having an off week if possible, or at least a few recovery days. Just think about that. It has to get built in. And the last one is the hard easy rule. And that means if you've done a very hard session, so say you think prime time is really hard, or maybe you're given a huge effort in prime time, what I would say to you then is the next day you just do something very easy, like a gentle walk or a stretching session. Okay, so it's not hard session followed by hard session followed by hard session. That's going to break your body down. So it's hard one followed by an easy one. And if you do those, that's a really good way to look after your body. And remember, for your body and your mind, recovery is absolutely essential. It's not optional, even though lots of people forget about it. So you need to build it in, and you need to listen to your body, because it's really clever and it knows if you need a rest. Take it. Just listen to it and get familiar with how you're responding to your training. And just if you want to help you, tomorrow the girls will email out a sample training diary, just for a week. So if you want to write down what you're doing and tick off, okay, am I meeting the recommendations, or where am I? Or, you know, what do I need less of, or maybe a little bit more of? It might help you really think through this and see where you're at. And we find the training diaries very useful. So that is a sprint session. Let me stop recording this.